Okay, welcome back to the 1090 podcast. I'm here with Burke and April DeGroff. Did I say that right?
DeGroff.
DeGroff. Um, kind of a different episode. Usually we start with the obituary and we just kind of dive in from there. But let's just kind of tell them what we're doing here. What are we doing here? I'm asking for it here. I got a message from you guys. I'd say pretty quickly after the car crash. So that we're talking 4 years ago. And you guys were so nice. You talked about how you were there on the scene and you thinking of Blue and wanted to meet maybe. And I just couldn't. I just was living day to day, maybe even minute to minute at that point. I was just like in a lot of shock and pain. But I knew, like, I wanted to remember you guys. Like, I want to come back to this when I'm ready. So I kept your contact, and then, I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think maybe a year, maybe a couple more years went by, and I reached back out to you to maybe be on the podcast, and you're like, yeah, but we were in a lawsuit, so I was advised not to. That's finally over. And now we reached back out, and I guess what I really want, there's lots of parts of grief that, people handle grief differently. It's not right or wrong. It's just different. And for me, I think looking at pictures, talking about the car crash, wanting to know the details of it is helpful to me. And I met a guy named why am I blanking on double C? Colin Campbell. I met Colin Campbell. So he lost two kids to a drunk driver. And I remember when I interviewed him, he's like, because he was driving the car. He's like, car crash happens. My kids are in the back seat, clearly dead. Like it looks awful. And he's like, someone from the crowd like urged me to go see him, like go up to my kids and see him and like see it. And he's like, I'm so glad I did. And we just talked about that, like looking at it and facing it, as bad as it is and as uncomfortable as it is. I think there's a lot of healing in that. But I don't know if that's right for everyone. So I don't know if this is the part of grief that it's just different, because I don't want to encourage everyone to look at dead bodies and look like maybe it's just a preference thing with grief. But if you're listening to this and you're dealing with grief, like from my experience, looking at it, talking about it, crying about it, feeling it, as bad as it hurts, has been way better, and I think healthier, if I can use that term, versus never going there and just being tormented by your thoughts and imagination of what was it like. So that's kind of where I'm at. So thank you so much for you two for showing up for me today. And I wasn't there. I carry a lot of guilt for not being there in that car. And I feel like this conversation is something I can do to maybe make up or try to say I'm sorry or try to be there in any way I can. So I think I'm going to try to shut up for a little bit after that long intro. But Burke, maybe you just want to you can talk about yourself for a little bit, maybe what you do for a living, but maybe talk about that day, what you were doing that day, and then why you were at the car crash and what you saw, and maybe just kind of walk us through your perspective of that day for you.
Okay. We'd been up at my wife's class reunion. What was it, your 25th or something? 30th.
How long have you guys been married?
30 years. Well,
Wow.
Just over 30 years. It'll be 31 years in February.
Congratulations. What's the secret?
She's right. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know, whatever works. Compromise. Compromise is the biggest. And the other thing is her tolerating me and my habits. Um, I've raised horses for over 30 years. That's pretty much my passion, my sanity. There's days I come home after a bad day at work and she'll tell me, you need to go out and just go do your thing and go do something else because I'm going to make her crazy because I'm already going crazy. And it's very therapeutic for me. The other thing for me too is, you know, you'd brought up different stages of grief after being on the accident, talking about it to other people helped me kind of clear it because it was, I mean, it was pretty crazy
To process it.
Yeah. I
mean, God, people ask me like, why do you talk about it so much still? And I think for me, part of it is my brain, there's still so much shock in my brain. And talking about it truly helps. Like, this is real. This is reality.
well, you know, you said a second ago about the guilt that you weren't there. I carry a form of guilt because I couldn't get into everyone in the car. You know, about what was it, 5 years before, 4 years? I tore my shoulder up. They'd gone in completely, you know, I had a 6 or 8 mil tear in my labrum. They went in and repaired it. I went through 12 weeks of rehab and then they tore it back out. The therapist actually tore it out again. And so it didn't work right. And I mean, I was a farrier for 30 years, shoeing horses, training horses, always been pretty active, really was a pretty strong guy to where in this situation, 5 years earlier, I would have done everything to rip the door off the car. But in the state I was in, that ability wasn't there because I was pretty much crippled. So you deal with a little bit of guilt that what could you have done more? You know what I'm saying? It's like you pull up on something and you feel like you should be able to do something more than what I was able to do. But I mean, it's, you know, we were traveling southbound out of Fillmore and you could see a dust cloud about 150 feet in the air. And that was, it was a wall. It was black. I mean, that's 11 miles away from where the accident site was. And so as we're coming up on it,
How quick, how did it, like, how quick did it form and just was there? Or?
oh, it was there sitting there. I mean, blowing in that one spot. It never moved.
I could see it. It was like it was literally a wall. And I kind of jokingly, because there was a car in front of us, and as we're driving, I can see that car's taillights a little bit like they were starting to, but it was literally a wall, like you're going through a curtain. And I said, and they're gone because just disappeared. And as soon as we went through it, that's when I realized the severity. Like it was.
And you can't just stop immediately, right? Like you can't, or are people pulling over?
No, and see, and that's where Burke and I'm really glad he was behind the wheel. I'm so glad that he was the one driving because all of his UDOT training, and plus he's been a truck driver for years and years since he was 18, I think, driving for his grandpa. So all the years of this driving and this situations he'd been in, he knew exactly what to do and not to just hurry and pull off right then and there because the people behind you that can't see what's happening, the likelihood of them hitting you and just that continuing that chain reaction. So he said, you drive ahead of the accident, pull off, you know, as far up ahead of it as you can. But I'm just really thankful that, because it's almost like just this instinct that kicked in for him where he just took over.
Well, and so we were a mile from the accident, half mile from the accident, something like that. And the cars were just passing us, you know. I'd already kicked the cruise off, kicked the hazards on, moved halfway over into the emergency lane, thinking zero visibility, you've got to have a way out. The way I grew up driving truck was you have to have an escape plan somewhere So no matter where I'm driving at, I'm always looking at where I'm going to go if something happens. And so, as we're entering into this and all of a sudden the taillights disappear, I'm moving over closer and closer. Pretty soon we're in the weeds.
How close to the tailgate, like the tailgates disappear? Like how many feet in front of you?
Six
Till it was
to 10 feet.
so that's all you could see.
You can't see anything. April's got a video of when I stopped the truck and I cleared the back of the pickup maybe by 3 feet, 4 feet, and you couldn't see me anymore. You could see a silhouette, but you couldn't see me. But basically, I started going off the side of the road into the weeds. Instead of the delineator being on the right side of the truck, the delineator was now on the left side of the truck.
What does that mean?
That's the marker with the reflector on it.
Okay.
That marks where the edge of the road is. And so I was clear off in the dirt. I wasn't even on the pavement. And you could hear that eerie sound of impact, the trucks and the cars hitting. And so as we're going through, there's debris everywhere. So you're just kind of going through it and you can see all these cars that are piled up on top of each other. We passed your brother and your wife and the car was on fire. And I had pulled up past it. And like I say, I'm off the side of the road and it had kind of started to clear right there just a little bit. And so finally, I've got to go back and put out the fire, it was on, you had flames probably, 12, 18 inches above the hood. And so it was just getting rolling. And so I jumped out of the truck and ran to the very first semi I came to. And I was probably 100 yards past where their car was because I'd pulled ahead to get out of the way of the wreck. And I'd ran back and grabbed a fire extinguisher out of the first semi I came to, emptied a 10-pound fire extinguisher underneath the hood of the car, knocked the flames down, and then started trying to evaluate who was in the car. The problem was from the impact, the doors were locked shut. There was no, you couldn't just pop the door and open it. Everything was smashed shut. And a truck had hit the back of the van and it had caved in the window or broke the glass in the window, but it had also smashed the window down to where it was maybe 12, 14 inches. And so I'm initially looking, trying to check on, see who's what. And I thought everybody in the car was gone. I was still trying to assess the situation, figure some way to get into the car when Blue sat up and started crying. And I ran back to the back of the car and I could reach in and I could touch the back of his head with my fingers. That was all I could touch. And there was no way to get in. I mean, everything was so smashed up that you couldn't physically get inside the car. And I was back there talking to him and he had turned and I can see it. I was telling April on the way here, there's a lot of stuff I can still see as if it happened this morning. And I still remember him turning, looking at me, crying. You could see his arm was broke right here because the way it was bent. And he was crying, wanting his mom. And there was nothing I could do because I couldn't reach him. I was talking to him and telling him, hey, I'm going to get you out in a minute, bud. Just, kind of hold on. And I heard a whoosh. And I turned and looked, and the front of the car engulfed in flames again, which at that point I was like, well, I'm going to kill myself here before I'm going to let something happen to him in the car because it was literally on fire. You could see the hoses melting off the bottom of the engine, dripping on the ground where it was burning. I ran around to the next truck that was closest and opened up the side box. And he had a bigger fire extinguisher in there. I went to get it out. He must have been knocked out because he'd come out of the truck when I'd opened his door to pop the side door open to get to the fire extinguisher, and he wasn't going to let me take it. Matter of fact, he was pretty adamant I wasn't going to take it. And I had to explain to him what I was going to do to him if he didn't get out of my way. I shoved him back into the truck, grabbed the extinguisher, ran around the other side of the truck back to the front of the car, and I emptied that 20-pound extinguisher underneath the front of the car. And Anyway, it knocked the flames back down again, and I was able to run around and and start talking to Blue again, and let him know that there was someone there, because I mean, it's still, the visibility was, it sucked. You couldn't see 7, 8, 10 feet maybe, but by then it had kind of let up a little bit. Um, and I kept looking around, and there's nobody around. There's no other people. I mean, I'd heard other cars stopping, and the impact from cars hitting had stopped, but that had gone on for the first 10 minutes while I was there.
That's what surprised me the most, was realizing that we were literally some of the first ones. I mean, we were in it, and there were no, responders there yet, first responders there yet. And so that's where I was really thankful that he knew, just, number one, like where the fire extinguishers are. He just happened to know because he drove truck and he knew exactly where they would be. So he was able to do a lot of this until they finally started showing up. But, like he said, the visibility was so horrible. My first thought sitting in the truck, and I'm telling you, we didn't, this is my opinion. I know we were there at that time for a reason. It just wasn't a coincidence that we happened to be there. We did not get a scratch on the vehicle. We didn't get a scratch on ourselves. I will say it was terrifying as a wife to watch my husband get out of the truck and literally walk back into that, and still hearing impact and impact, and watching my husband's silhouette disappear back into that dust. But I know he's going to help somebody. So that was scary, but I'm just thankful that he was able to be there to help. And, from my perspective, as we were coming in on it at first, it hit me how how serious this was. I looked over out the driver's window as he's passing the semi that had the car wedged up underneath it, and it just hit me. I mean, my hands over my mouth, just, oh my gosh, this is real. Like this, trying to understand the reality of this. This is not just, I mean, this is happening. And it was, I didn't know how anybody could have, come through that. So when Burke came back to the truck and told me, there's a little boy in there, I've got to get him out. And I was like, what do you want me to do? What can I do? And he said, you've got to stay here. I can't, how am I going to help other people knowing that you're out there somewhere in all of this? And, I'm a very spiritual person, and I was praying, what can I do? What can I do? And literally it was like a hand on my shoulder, and hearing, I don't know, feeling a voice, whatever, saying, stay in the truck and keep your seatbelt on. And so I did, but that's when I thought, I want my kids to see what their dad is doing, because he's not doing it for himself and for glory or anything like that. He's doing this because he loves people, and he sees a need to take care. There's a situation he needs to help, and he's going to help. So him walking back into that, I was really touched. Man, we've been married for all these years, and it gives you an idea of the person you really married. Like this is deeper than just he's a hard worker, he provides for the family. No, this is a man who, in my eyes, I'm now seeing the his true heart, that he obviously doesn't care about his safety. He's willing to get in there, and especially when he found out that Blue was in there and heard him crying, and trying to console him. And it was really touching. And I wanted my boys to know that your dad's willing to jump in here and help people. And it wasn't just Burke. There were other people starting to come and take a look at what was going on, and they started working together to try to get this all figured out. But yeah, that visibility, I mean, it would come and go. It would be like that sheet would come back to where you couldn't see, 5 feet in front of you, and then all of a sudden it would clear a little bit, and you're looking at everything. And I'm thinking, this looks like a scene from The Walking Dead. There's, because a camp trailer had been hit, so there's little kids' blankets and games and just stuff everywhere. And it was really hard, even as a just someone watching it, you know. I'm thankful that we weren't hurt or anything, but I mean, still, someone watching it, it was, really traumatic to watch that too. But just very thankful that he was able to get in there and help, do something to help.
You think if Burke wasn't there, you think that car isn't on fire and Blue probably doesn't make it out?
I think so. Which when it reignited, it scared me to death. Because you're like, oh crap. I mean, it was hard enough looking at everybody else that was in the vehicle, you know, um, let alone you've been talking to this little boy, tell him you're going to get him out, he's going to be fine. And yet, when you hear that, I mean, it just, you're like, oh no. I mean, it was pure, well, I wouldn't say panic, but it was something's going to happen. You know, you're going to have to, something has to happen. It's got to be right now. We'd been there. I'd had the fire out for the second fire out for maybe another, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 minutes when the first other person came up. And everybody that was kind of on the ground was going from vehicle to vehicle, checking on people. There actually was a guy in the truck in a pickup pulling the camper that he lived down the road from us when we lived out in the valley out in Enoch. Him and his grandson, and they'd ran into the back of a semi and got hit. Their camp trailer got hit by another semi, and they were able to get out the passenger side, but they couldn't get out the driver's side of his truck. We were looking for bars. We were looking for anything, trying to get the doors open. And the side window on the back of the van, I didn't want to break it because Blue was right there by it, and he was going to get showered in glass. And so we were, I think there was 3, maybe 4 of us there by that time, working, trying to get a door open. And we just, no matter what you did, you couldn't get a door open. And I can still remember the first responders pulling up in their brush truck, and the kid that jumped out first, and I yelled at him that the car had been on fire, and there was a little boy in there, and he jumped out of there and went right on the roof of the car, busted in the skylight and dropped in there, went in, got hold of him, picked him up and handed him to me. And then the other guys come around and grabbed him, and they took him straight over the ambulance. And his poor little arm, I mean, it was, you probably saw it. I mean,
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, it's one of those moments, it's frozen in time. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And, some of these guys will talk about survivor's remorse and stuff like that. I'll tell you what, from, I guess you could call it a rescue side of things, you wish there's something else you could do for everybody else in the car. And there was nothing. I mean, it's, I don't think if you'd had EMTs right there and a fire crew there to cut the car open, the outcome would not have been any different. It was, I mean, everybody was gone. And like I say, when Blue took that breath, I heard him from 10 feet away. And I was, oh my gosh, you're very thankful that, somebody made it. But it was April had talked about the camp trailer. It got hit so hard by that semi that hit the back of it. It completely blew it off the frame and shattered it into 1,000 pieces. And there was debris everywhere. The one car that went underneath the back of the semi, all you could see was its trunk. It was, a lot of the impact was probably 80 miles an hour to stop. And you never saw anybody that passed us ever touch a brake until just as they were disappearing into the dark, into that dust. And then you'd see a brake light for just a second. But other than that, everybody still had their cruise on, going into it, and never even, I guess, thought about trying to stop. But it was something else. I've been driving off and on the road since I was, well, I used to go with my grandpa and my dad back when I was 13 and 14, and I've seen a lot of accidents, but I've never seen anything like that till that day. It was pretty crazy.
One of the cars that was right in front of us as we were pulling through that wall. I saw the old man, like his arm. It's like he's starting to get out of the car, and my first thought is, "Don't get out of your car. This is not over." And of course, I don't know what ended up happening with him, but yeah, just pulling up forward, and when he started getting out of the car and hearing more impact, I just thought, oh, I mean, all I could do was just pray and just praying to keep people safe. And to this day, every time I don't know, maybe this is part of my post traumatic whatever. Whenever I hear an ambulance or the sirens are going off in town, my first thought is, oh, my son just barely left. He came and brought me a drink and he just barely left. What if it was him? So I hurry and call, or I hurry and text, "Are you okay? I just heard some sirens." Like that's because I get in this panic mode of, you know, you don't know who it can be, or what's happening, or when the last time you're going to see somebody. We've each had a sibling pass away suddenly, and so going through that too, it's like, one morning they're there and by that night they're gone. You don't have control over it. So you know when I hear those sirens, I start to panic a little bit, and I say a prayer for whoever it happens to be. I don't know who it is or what it is, but please let them be okay. Let this have a good outcome. But it's scary, and like I said, we've both you know had similar, I mean, not as obviously as severe as this, but we've experienced loss that's so quick and sudden, and nobody wants to go through it. But I think it's really great that you're using this to help other people process their grief, because I think a lot of people don't know how to handle it. They may turn to alternative things, and really talking about it. I love writing in a journal, and I've written in journals since I was 6 years old, and that's where how I get a lot of my stress out, is I just write it all down. Because if I keep that in, I don't want to know how it's going to come out, in what ways that's going to come out. I just as soon get it out, and that's one way I can process it. But yeah, this was difficult, and it was tough. I mean, I remember watching the funeral on the web. I it was really touching, and I mean, not that I felt like I was a part of it, but in a way, I just felt that connection. And
Well, and we did that interview with Bob Evans on Fox 13 News. Was it the night or night after? I guess it was the day after. I can't remember. Anyway, we did that interview with him, and that was the night we talked to your father-in-law. And he was asking us a bunch of questions about it and everything, and wanting to know, well, and I still can remember the one question he asked me. He says, "Did they suffer?" And I said, "I don't think so. I think it was instant." I mean, I can't imagine what that impact was like. And then, here's Blue in the back seat. And I know it knocked the wind out of him, because when I heard him gasp and getting some air, it's crazy to think that, you'd be going that fast. And you try to describe to someone being in that situation, what it's like or what it sounds like. And the only thing you can compare it to, if you watch some of these ice storms they have in the Midwest, and the road turns to black ice and you can hear the trucks hitting. Imagine hearing that sound off those videos, and yet you can't see that it, because of the dust. It's the eeriest feeling and sound in the world. And then, I mean, like I was telling you, when I realized that Blue was alive and breathing and conscious, and then I can't get to him. Everything in your head is screaming exactly what you need to go do. but everything you try, you can't. And I mean, when, like I was telling you, when the fire truck showed up and I told him he was in there, I found out a couple weeks after that actually the fireman that went into the car was one of my buddies from college. It was his brother, and he had to go under a lot of treatment from a therapist to get over that because of what happened inside the car. But this kid bails out of the fire truck, and he's at a full sprint after he heard what I said. And I'm like, hey, I got a little kid trapped in here and the car keeps catching on fire. He was one jump, was standing on the roof of the car, walked over, kicked the sunroof out, dropped down through the sunroof, went to the back of the car, got Blue, handed him out to us. And then he went around and started checking everybody else in the car. And then, of course, it was his crew that was the ones that were responsible for all the cleanup on that. And then they had to wait for the mortuary guys to get there, and they dealt with all of that. We thankfully, we didn't deal with that part. But just from what I saw was, I mean, you don't forget stuff like that. It's pretty intense, you know.
Yeah, I'm just shaking so much on the inside.
I'm with you. Every time I get talking about it, I'm the same way.
Yeah. I'm just gonna start. I just want to say thank you. You saved Blue. You're a hero. And you're my hero. I would not be here today if Blue didn't make you good. And I owe a lot of people thank yous, like that kid. What an incredible story. And like so much beauty and so much awfulness too, like what April had to say and about witnessing what you saw in Burke. And yeah, I think that's just kind of what life is. It's just a big smack of awfulness and beautiful things together. And for me, like, just I talk about as a speaker or whatever about how I ran from it for so long, and conversations like this is one that I've been running from. And I think my father-in-law Trent, his question, his worry is a big one I had. Like, I was so scared to talk to you because, like, if you heard Blue breathing and then Frankie breathing or Riggs breathing and then they die, or like that would just really not be good.
I'm not so sure if that would have happened that I would be in the state that I'm in, because it was traumatizing enough, reoccurring, seeing it over and over. That would have, I've told April before, I feel like, not that it would have killed me, but that would have, knowing that you might have been able to help someone.
Yeah. And
I couldn't, that would have been real taxing, I think.
Yeah, like I interviewed Race's his boxer trainer once. And he's like, Mace, like, I feel guilty. And just because he could have asked Race to box, like, the day of the accident or something, like, and then you roll up and you're the hero, and one of the first things you say on our podcast today is you feel guilty or maybe some shame. And I just think that's an emotion that no one talks about. And I think it's an emotion that really haunts a lot of us more than we realize. And man, that's one of the things I'm learning as I talk about grief with people is that's a very common emotion. And the other thing that's so messed up about it is you have no reason to feel guilty. Zero. Like Race's trainer has zero. Me, zero maybe. But like, even with me knowing that, still just
well, you know,
hate myself.
It's kind of like there's a ball right here on the floor. All you got to do is pick it up, and you can't reach it to pick it up. And that was what it was for me. Is they were right there. I mean, before I'd got hurt, I worked for a fireplace company, and I was selling 500-600 pound wood stoves. By myself, I could put those in a basement. You know, me, you're used to being as strong as you are to go do this stuff, and that gets taken from you, and then you're in this situation where this is where I need it, and it's not there. You know, and you can't. No matter how hard you try, you can't go and do what you should have been able to do, and it literally is. It's one of those that, well, what if? Well, what if? Well, what if? Because I go through that in my head and did for a long time, not so much now, you know. But I mean, like you said, it kind of is what it is. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it.
There was a podcast that I had listened to of yours. And I remember you saying something to the effect of, I should have been there. And I don't remember, was it work or something that kept you?
Yeah, I just took a new job.
Yeah.
And just felt like I couldn't miss work after I just took the job type of thing.
And after hearing you say that, my first thought was, had you been there and you were the one driving with your wife, Blue would have been alone. Like,
Yeah.
he needed his daddy.
Yeah.
And what a blessing. I mean, if you look at this whole chaotic situation and traumatic and heartbreaking situation, if you want to talk about silver linings, Blue has his daddy and you have Blue. I mean, for him to be without both parents, how hard. I mean, I'm so thankful that you guys have each other.
Yeah. Me too, because not just for surviving, but for happiness. Like, I still have joy in my life and happiness in my life and purpose. Man, purpose. Like, I still have that after losing so much. And that's just, that's why being a dad's the best. Like, I just think it's the absolute best. And that's just, I don't know, every problem I hear in the world, I'm like, just go be a good parent. Like, that's just my solution for everything. Like, you don't like this happening? Well, just raise a good kid. And yeah, again, I just owe you guys a thank you for giving me my son, and truly, Sammy's on the switchboard, so she can tell you too. But he is so happy, and he's doing so good, and he's just such a resilient, funny, happy boy. And so thank you. Like, not only are we getting by, but I think we're even enjoying ourselves a little bit as much as we can, and so I hope you guys know that Blue is doing so good.
One of my favorite, like, because I started following you on Instagram because it meant the world to me, and I know to Burke too, but it meant the world to me to be able to visually see this little boy. You know, the first few videos, you know, he had the bandage on his head and his arm in the cast or whatever. And then seeing a video of him riding his bike without training wheels for the first time, all these firsts. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord. You know, like, thank you for giving this dad and this boy their lives, like giving them each other. And so it's been so fun. And you know, watching Sammy too, being a part of your life and just the happiness and the cannonballs into the pool and just these fun things that it's like, what a gift.
Yeah.
Well, and it really is when we started stalking you on Instagram after, I think it was therapeutic for me to go on and see how he was doing. That, well, at least we were able to help with this. I don't look at it as I did anything that anybody else wouldn't have done. But I can tell you, watching him growing up, there's days that were worse than others, as you can attest to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I could pull up that and watch him like riding his dirt bike. He's like a little evil Knievel, the toughest little bugger. And I mean, what that does, like would do for me, because you're actually getting to see, he's not just made it, he's thriving. And I can't imagine being a little 3-4-year-old boy that you go from crying, wanting mom while you're in the car and you're trapped in there, to a bunch of strangers, somebody's talking to you that you've never met before. And, they're telling you they're going to get you out. And then they load you on a plane and fly you to, Salt Lake. And I mean, thank the Lord you were able to go be up there with him, so he had someone.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that was the traumatic part for me, was you're like this, and of course we didn't know the whole situation, and I'm thinking to myself, this little boy just lost his whole family. And that was what we had thought until, when was it, the next day? I don't even remember. Anyway,
I think that's what a lot of people thought.
Yeah, I thought that, and I was heartbroken. I mean, it tore me up. I'm one of those dads that you show up. I mean, my son Rhett, from the time he was 8 months old, I was training horses after work. He wanted to go with Dad, and I was packing him in one arm, riding colts that I had no business doing that on, so I could take him everywhere with me. And then it went from one, and then I had to buy Rhett a horse when he was 2.5, so he could ride.
2.5.
Yeah, so he could ride his horse, because I was packing his brother.
Wow.
And then it went from the 1, then the 2, then the 3, then to 4, and I think my youngest boy was 6 years old when I took the last diaper and a dried up bag of wipes out of my saddlebags. And I think he was about 6 or 7 years old, but I had took them with me. They weren't even potty trained yet. And they're herding cows, whatever I was doing, I took them with me all the time. And my kids are that important, and so it's like, I totally get the whole, you're here and he's here, and the bond you two must have has got to be absolutely amazing. I mean, just knowing the situation and stuff, I can't even fathom it myself, as a dad and a husband and stuff, that the pain and that it would cause is just, I mean, it's almost incomprehensible for myself.
I mean, it is for me too. Yeah, I'm still learning how to comprehend it myself. But yeah, without Blue, 100% undoable, for sure. I don't mean to be rude. I'm just gonna text my father-in-law because he's watching Blue right now.
Oh, right on.
And I want them to both meet you guys, so I'm gonna tell them to come.
Well, that'd be cool. That honestly is one of the things that, just we've watched on the, your Instagram on him growing up and stuff, but I've always thought how cool that would be to meet him under good circumstances, other than the way that I did. But I mean, that's pretty awesome to see how much he's thriving and stuff.
Yeah, truly.
Burke actually had a colt that was born the spring, just a few months before this happened, and we hadn't been able to come up with a name for this horse. And so,
I remember you texting me this story. Yeah.
And she was blue. She was a blue roan.
Uh-huh.
And that's we and then some friends of ours bought her, and they've got her now, and I see her a couple times a month, and she's just down the road from our house, and they still call her Blue. But that was one of those things too that you know you've got to in life. I think you have to look for the silver linings. You can't dwell on the negative. You've got to find something that gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and it's just one of those things that you're just, and it was crazy because we got home that day. I walked out in the barn to go feed the horses, and I looked at her, and it was oh, that's what I'm gonna call her from here on out, and stuff. But I mean, as corny or weird as it might sound, it was just one of those things that it's like, oh yeah, there you go. But I don't know. I'm like I say, I'm just tickled to death every time I see you post a video of him doing something that it makes my heart happy that he's doing so good,
Yeah, life is really difficult, but you're supposed to enjoy it. And so if Blue survived, but we're not enjoying life, then what was the point?
Right.
What are we doing? What time of day was it? Did this happen? Did that car accident happen?
Like 2 or 3 in the afternoon or 4 o'clock or something?
It was, I want to say it was maybe early afternoon. I mean, the videos and pictures I have would have timestamps on them, but I mean,
Yeah, I don't need the exact time. I just had like experiences that day that I'm just curious. The timeline is all.
yeah, because I remember after the cops told us, you guys can go ahead and go. I mean, it was just all surreal. Like, wait, did that just really happen? And we'd stopped at another gas station at was it Meadow? Coforth. And just telling people at the gas station, if you're going north, you might want to just wait. Like, I don't know. It was just, I couldn't believe that it all happened. But yeah, it was because we probably got home, I don't know, 7-ish. It was later in the evening that we got home, but we are still mid-trip.
Well, and we'd been up in Pocatello, Idaho, and so we'd left there that morning at like 9 and stopped at my parents' house in Orem for a little bit, and then headed down. So it probably would have been between 2 and 3,
2 or 3 o'clock
in the afternoon, maybe 4. But
I just don't even remember. Maybe they did call me early. I just thought I got called like 5 or 6, but
and see,
maybe I could just remember that totally wrong.
Well, and I know that it was so chaotic that they were, one of the firemen, and I don't remember which one it was, had wrote down the license plate number while the other one was pulling Blue out of the van. And so, I mean, so they could at least, I'd know who he was and where he'd come from and stuff. And the amount of triage that would have been going on with all the other people in the accident would have, I mean, if it was 5 or 6, it was because that they would have had to have got him back to the hospital, and they were shuffling.
And I'm sure, I think a lot of people thought it was one family for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
And so I think, because I remember when he called me, there were so many questions making sure I was the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just finally like, dude, what is going on? And then he hits me with the news. But I'm so glad you were there, Burke. So thanks, man. I don't know how else to thank you. I'll give you a big hug or whatever. But truly, from the bottom of my heart, like, it blues everything. So
I can honestly tell you, and I've thought about this question a million times, what I would say and I wish honestly that I could have done more. Yeah. I really honestly, I mean, I'd have done anything to have helped one of your other kids or your wife, and you'd have had 2 of them run around instead of just one. I mean,
man, I think
I'd give anything to be able to do that, because it was, I mean, when we got done getting him out of the van, and I'd had him for a second, the other fireman took him, and a cop pulled up right then. And he just looked at me, goes, "Are you involved in the accident?" And I said, "No." I told him who I was. And And I said, I'm parked up here off the edge of the road. We were able to get around it. And I told him, the car had been on fire and everything. And I says, do I need to fill out any kind of an accident report or anything like that? And he goes, no, go. He said, we don't want anybody here that doesn't have to be here. Just go. And so they had us leave. So then we pull up to Cove Fort. And I can remember I was wearing a brand new hat. And this is how much dust was in the air. I was wearing a brand new ball cap. And it was about a 1/4 inch thick all the way across the bill and on the top of my hat that was almost looked like moss. Mm. And I'd gone in the bathroom, threw the hat in the garbage, went in the bathroom, and I scrubbed my face forever just trying to get the dirt off of me that, so you could even, you just feel the grime stuck all over to you. And and then we were, of course, I was talking to people, telling them, don't go northbound, go around. It's just, it was because the wreck was so bad.
How long do you think the sandstorm lasted?
Well, when we pulled out of Maverick in Fillmore, you could see it. And by the time...
Did it look like a thunderstorm maybe, or did it look...
Oh, no, it was a brown wall of dirt. You could see it. Where it whipped up. And from the time we drove from Fillmore till about the time the cops got there, after we'd already got him out of the car, was when it had finally cleared off and you could see the damage. I can remember we were talking to Bob Evans and he's like, and the only way to describe it was like a war zone. Everything was just blown clear to hell.
Yeah.
It was something out of a movie that,
So do you think it was like 20 minutes, 10 minutes?
Oh, probably 30.
30 minutes.
Yeah, I'll bet you're at least 30 minutes. And I don't know how long it had been going on before we got there. But right. It couldn't have been too long because from where my truck was parked till we were out of it was 100 yards. Hmm. And the weird thing was on the northbound side of the road, it was dusty, but it wasn't encased like it was 75 feet across the road on the southbound side. The northbound side, it was dusty, but they could see through it. But on the southbound side, you couldn't.
Man.
It was, I
didn't think about that. Like, the other.
Yeah. In 30, 40 years of being on the road, I have never seen anything like that. Out on Buckhorn, just north of Parowan, they had a dust storm, 15 years ago. And we had, UDOT had to put signs up that said, high dust area or something like that, and low visibility, on these signs, just in case it ever happened again. So people would, there's a sign to mark that, hey, this could happen. But, some of the people that were going northbound that I actually watched them, on Facebook, they'd put up a video of what it looked like on the other side, and it wasn't near as bad. I don't even think they wrecked a car on the northbound side.
Yeah, again, I hadn't even thought about the other side of the road.
But yet on our side of the road, there's, what would there be, 32 or 34 vehicles?
I was told 22, but
whatever it was, something like that. It was, and most of them were big trucks and little cars.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But
well, anyway. Again, you're my hero, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's been an absolute terrible, sad story. But do we want to end on top 3 favorite movies and try to end on a positive note here? Anything else you guys want to say before we end with your favorite movies?
Honestly, I think I can speak for both of us in saying that we're just honored to finally get to meet you and to...
Well, I'm the honored one, truly.
And to let you know how, this has impacted a lot of people, I know, but it means the world to us to see, you're going through what you're going through, but you're building off of that. You're building this beautiful, rebuilding this beautiful life.
Yeah.
And how special that is to see that, that love is just going to continue. And like you said, raise your kids right. You're going to raise him into, he's already an amazing little kid.
I know, I love him. He's great. But, you're going to, raise him into, he's already an amazing little kid. I know, I love him. He's great.
But, life is what we make it. You know, I love the whole 1090 thing. Like, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's what we make it. You can come from the worst of circumstances and have all the excuses in the world. Well, you know, I grew up like this, or my parents beat me, or, you know, I went through this as a kid and that's why I am the way I am. Or, you know what? You have the choice, change it. If you don't like the way life is going, and or you're afraid that, you know, your life might go a certain direction because in your family like the whole dysfunctional chain thing, you know, well, I raised you this way because my parents raised me that way and that's just how it is. BS. You know, that doesn't mean I have to continue it just because that's how it happened for generations. I have the ability to, you know, stop it, and I can create life and make it be what I want it to be. And my kids, at least I hope they know how much I love them. And it's all in, you know, our parenting and how much we show our kids how much they're loved. And in these videos I see of Blue and you guys interacting as a family, like, you can tell he knows he's loved.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. So.
He has lots of love and support for sure.
Well, and there was something you said at the beginning about, you know, a lot of guys, you know, you're raised, be tough, don't cry, bury the emotion type of thing. And I follow a few guys on Instagram that it's actually, you know what? There's nothing wrong with crying, showing some emotion, and you have to let it out. I mean, I'll be the first person to admit there's nothing I hate worse than crying, you know, but there's times that's exactly what you need to heal. And, you know, being able to show that raw emotion, and as a father, letting your kids see it, I think is huge because it makes you human, right?
Oh, and for them to be able to see that you're human and realize that, oh, you're not this, you know, immortal, you know, made of stone. Like, you do have feelings. And
like, I can try to explain it to Blue, but if I just cry in front of him, like,
yes,
he gets it. Like, okay, wow.
Wait till he's a teenager and you see what that does with him. Literally, seriously, the difference, your words, they're just giving you the high sign and out.
Yeah.
But if you can actually show them that raw emotion, they get it. And I mean, and it's not like 2 hours later, it's like, oh, and you know, I mean, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, I think those are wise words. Do you guys like movies?
She's the movie watcher.
I love going to the theater just because it's the atmosphere.
Well, we end with top 3 favorite movies. So
I haven't seen any super great ones in a long time.
Me neither.
We do love Westerns, but I think, like, I don't know. I just love The Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington. And Chris Pratt's hilarious. And I just like the
Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Denzel Washington, not the old one, like the new one. Like, that's...
I haven't seen that one.
I like that. My kids all love Tombstone, you know.
Okay, Tombstone is a great movie.
That is a dang good one.
I would have to say, out of anything I've watched, that I've probably rewatched 2 or 3 times, and I think it takes me back because that was the biggest thing when I was in high school, was watching Top Gun.
Oh, yeah.
Watching Top Gun Maverick is pretty awesome. You know, I mean, like I said, I think I've watched it 2 or 3, maybe even 4 times. But I think it's because I grew up, Top Gun was the movie to watch, you know, back in the day. So
girls like the volleyball scene, you know. And so now that I'm older, I can't watch that football scene because I'm like, oh, I'm old enough to be their mother. So, like, I can't watch it the same way I could watch that volleyball scene when I was in high school. So.
Yeah, those are some great movies. The Danger Zone. I like the soundtrack to Top Gun. Right into the Danger Zone. And I like the second Top Gun. They did good. Yeah. That was a really good movie.
For a sequel, usually the sequel's bomb. Exactly. And I thought, I mean, actually, the sequel was at least as good as the first one.
Yeah, I was well pleased with it. So they did good. Well, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Life's 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it.